We hear this all the time. I say it all the time. How do the Florida Gators stack up at premium positions?
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. And happy Tuesday. I get mixed up when we go live because yesterday we had a 42-minute live show when Harrison Bailey committed. It got off the rails. It was a ton of fun. Then we had the Murky Waters space with Katie Daniels and Jen Baugh. Check that out on Twitter. It's at Murky Waters Pro. If you want to see that, it was at 6:30 yesterday. Hell of a time. But I am Brandon Olsen. Happy Tuesday. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And like I mentioned, and like we talk about a lot, the premium positions in football. We've done this, I think, every year that I've hosted Locked On Gators, where we've talked about those premium positions. And you can call them different things. We've called them on this show before the 5 pillars. We've called them the building blocks, whatever it is. But it's the thought process that was, I don't know who came up with it. I know that I was introduced to the concept by former Atlanta Falcons general manager Thomas Dimitroff. And the concept is that if you have good players at the premium positions, you've probably got a good team. Quarterback, wide receiver, pass catcher, you could also say for like a Travis Kelce type. Offensive tackle, pass rusher, and outside cornerback. And pass rusher, pass catcher are two areas where we leave them kind of a little opaque-ish, where it's supposed to be receiver, edge rusher, but I think that the way football has evolved, where you could say pass catcher, pass rusher for the two, because, if you say pass rusher and you just mean edge rushers, you're excluding the guys like Aaron Donald, you're excluding the guys like Chris Jones. You say pass catcher, you're excluding a Travis Kelce, a George Kittle, you're excluding those guys, and you shouldn't, especially when they produce like receivers. And so today we're going to do an exercise that we do all the time. We're probably going to do it again before the season after the spring portal, but talking about where Florida stands at those 5 pillar positions. Present has to be a confirmed good player, which could be your opinion. I try to look at this as objectively as possible. And so I'm not trying to look at this as a Florida Gators fan. I'm trying to look at it as, again, my background is the NFL draft. And so I try to look at it as, if I was building an organization, if I was building a program, would I say I have a definite good player, good to great, we try to say. It doesn't have to be elite, but you don't want someone where you go, yeah, we could upgrade there. So we'll use that. It's going to be my personal opinion. Yours may differ. If you want to track down the names, if you want to jot down the names, we can have a conversation about it after in the comments. That's fine with me. Or if you're part of the Insider program, links in the description below. But I sent this out last night to them. So present has to be a confirmed good player. Again, this is my opinion. Future has to be a blue chip player at that position that has been in college for no longer than 1 year or is a current commit. So if you're part of the 2024, 2025, or 2026 recruiting class and you are a blue chip player, my opinion of you does not matter. Even if you played as a true freshman, if you're part of the 2024 class and you weren't good, but you were a blue chip, you still count as a future 5 pillar. Looking at the first positions, quarterback is the most important position in football, arguably the most important individual position in all of sports, or the most important individual player in all of sports. You could argue like starting pitcher in baseball, but there's 5, right? They rotate so much. Quarterback, Florida Gators, present, you have a good quarterback in DJ Lagway. Okay. And I'm going to say you, because again, I'm trying to look at this as objective as possible. You have a good quarterback in DJ Lagway. He was great as a true freshman, or great for a true freshman. But great for a true freshman does not equal great. Okay? He was at least confirmed good. You could argue very good or better than just good. But he's got the big play ability. He's got all the physical traits where you could look at him right now and say he's likely going to be an early first-round pick. Unless he just does not develop at all, he's likely going to be a first-round pick. Very early first-round pick. He's just got the physical tools. He's got the size, the build, the arm talent, the mobility, the schoolyard bullcrapness where he can run around, scramble around, extend the play, and then still make a throw, keeps his eyes downfield when he's scrambling. So he's looking for the pass still, even when he's moving out of the pocket. He's at the very least a good quarterback right now. Okay? So for present, the Florida Gators have their answer in DJ Lagway. For the future, the Florida Gators still have their answer in DJ Lagway. He was a true freshman in 2024. And on top of that, you've got a blue chip player in Will Griffin committed for 2026. So you've kind of got the double edge there, right? You've got your current guy also counts as your future, and you've got another one at the position in waiting. And that's huge for the Florida Gators, okay? So that's big for the Gators to just look at and say, hey, we've got our answers. We've got our guys. We've got it at quarterback, which, again, I know that we say the 5 players, these are the premium positions. These are the 5 most important positions. I don't usually like to rank them at all, and I'm not going to rank them, but I am going to tell you quarterback is the most important one. And quarterback is the one where Florida has not had a ton of success in terms of quantity of quarterbacks they've added under Billy Napier, right? They just haven't. Max Brown was the first one. Not good. He's now at West Virginia, so he's going to be running with Rich Rod. That's going to be really fun offense if he gets that job. But you added Max Brown, Jack Miller out of the portal, Graham Mertz out of the portal, DJ Lagway out of high school, added Harrison Bailey out of the portal yesterday. You got Tramel Jones right now, who was on a blue chip. You've got, and actually we'll pull up Tramel Jones right now to see. I'm going to look at On3 while I'm doing this because On3 has the multiple listings of spots. And we'll say, sure, Tramel Jones also counts in this. He's a 3-star by On3 and 24/7, but ESPN and Rivals have him as a 4-star, and he's a composite 4-star on On3. So we'll say he's a 4-star as well. So that gives you Tramel Jones and Will Griffin for the future. You've got guys every year right now for 2024, 2025, and 2026 as blue chip building block quarterbacks. The most important position has been addressed after a very rough start under Billy Napier. You've addressed it. And so for the future, you look really freaking good at quarterback. So when we look at positions where you have a guy, you're 1 for 1 right now to start with quarterback for the Florida Gators. Nailed it with DJ Lagway. Again, I don't think he was great as a freshman, but I think at the very least he was good. He's got some things to clean up. But again, physical tools, the elite of the elite. But I'm not talking about physical tools. I'm talking about how he was on film, how he was as a player. Physical tools, elite of the elite, 1.1. But film had some areas to clean up, had some things to clean up. We've talked about it all season. We said, hey, he's not playing sustainable football. We talked about it yesterday during the live show. He's not playing sustainable football. Got to do that. Got to start playing sustainable football. That's his next step. Take what's underneath. Take what's there. Stop just looking for the home run all the time. If it's there, sure. But and if it's a throw you can make, even if it's not there, go ahead. But you need to work to the lower reads quicker. But again, as a true freshman quarterback, he's going to have those mistakes. It's nothing that concerns me. It's not like he's got clean pockets standing there and just whiffing on passes horribly. His inaccurate passes are usually because he's throwing from an awkward platform, even when he doesn't have to. Or he's just straight up making a bad decision. Those are things that you'll get better with as experience comes on. And so I'm not concerned with them. We'll talk about receiver and offensive tackle to wrap up, or pass catcher and offensive tackle to wrap up the Florida Gators offense next on Locked On Gators. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. FanDuel app, incredibly easy to navigate, incredibly fun to make money on, especially when you're betting against the Philadelphia Eagles. Sorry, Parth, but it's really fun to bet against them. Visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And the Florida Gators at pass catcher. Again, I count this as a wide receiver or a pass catching tight end. So while I think Hayden's a very good tight end, but he has almost no pass catching production. So I can't, in good faith, I can't put him in this ranking. So you don't have it at tight end. And for wide receiver, I'm sorry to say this, but I have to say none. I don't think you have a definitive good wide receiver on your team right now. Like, I think Trey Wilson could be really good. And last year before the season, we talked about Trey Wilson as could be really good. But as a true freshman, we only saw Trey Wilson catch pop passes and stuff that he just didn't have to run downfield for at all. Little pop passes in the backfield, screens, swings, just drags. We didn't see him do much. Against Arkansas in 2022 or 2023, he did. He had that one wiggle route that was beautiful. He had the return arrow play. Great stuff. But for the most part, he wasn't playing wide receiver. He was playing gadget, which is not an insult. I want to make that abundantly clear. I do not look at gadget as a negative. When I write my scouting reports for the NFL draft, I classify guys as offensive weapons, which is the gadget guys. So I don't look at it as a knock at all. It's not a negative at all for me. For me, it's a position. It's football in 2025. It's what guys do. Guys get paid just to do that. So I don't look at it as a knock. But I will say that as far as playing wide receiver, he has not done it. Like that's why I can't classify him as a bona fide good wide receiver. We haven't seen him play wide receiver. As a true freshman, he was working all underneath, and that was it. Last year, he played, 3.5 games, if that, before getting hurt and missing the rest of the season? It's not that I think he's bad at all. I think he can be a really good wide receiver. Genuinely. I think he's got all the way he moves. I've always said since he was a freshman, if not before then, I've been saying his film reminds me of Odell Beckham Jr. Like the way he moves when he gets the ball in his hands reminds me of Odell Beckham Jr. But we haven't seen him play wide receiver, and so I can't say he's definitively a good wide receiver or a good pass catcher. I just can't do it. In good faith, I can't do it. And you have no other proven production at your spot, so you don't have a proven pass catcher right now, or a proven good pass catcher right now. Luckily for the Florida Gators, in 2024, you brought in, we can count Amir Jackson in this, because while he is a tight end, he is a pass-catching tight end that in high school straight up played wide receiver. So you can count Amir Jackson, who is a consensus blue chip player, 4-star across the board. You can count Tank Hawkins, who is a 4-star everywhere except on 3. You can count TJ Abrams, who is a 4-star everywhere except on 3. And that's 2024 alone. You've got 3 guys that count as future building blocks as pass catchers. And then we can go to 2025. You got Dallas Wilson, who's a 5-star some places, 4-star others. You got Vernell Brown, who's a 4-star by every single metric, every single site. So you've got 2 guys there as well. You got 5 guys from the 2024. And if you want to count Nay Montgomery, you can as well. He's a 3-star on 3 and 24/7, 4-star ESPN and Rivals, 4-star on 3 industry ranking. So that's 6 guys now that you've got as blue chips at receiver, at pass catcher. And again, it's not to say the guys that are not blue chips aren't good. Like I love Moise Tunkara's film. But it's to say that right now you've got the blue chip building blocks at wide receiver. You just don't have anything proven there right now. But again, this is one of the areas where we're going to talk about future, and I'm letting you know this now. As far as future building blocks, Florida has a blue chip player at every single position. The issue for me is what I've been saying for a few weeks now, and people keep getting upset about it. I think they've done a fantastic job building a roster. And we'll talk about this again, of course, probably talk about it tomorrow. But I think they've done a fantastic job building a roster. But I think that coaching needs to catch up to talent at a certain point, because I think the talent is incredible. Coaching just needs to catch up. So as far as pass catcher goes, you've got multiple guys across the board. You're there. Offensive tackle, present, I will give you one. I will say Austin Barber is good enough where you could argue he is a definitive good offensive tackle. I don't think he's great. I'm not going to say great. I'm not going to say elite. But I think that pretty much everybody would say he's good at the very least. I say it at the very least, but I feel like most people would land on he's good. And for me, personally, I think he's good enough where you could say, hey, he's right now a building block. He's there. So, Austin Barber, present, you have an offensive tackle. That's 2 out of your 5. That's 2 out of your 3 positions that you've looked at so far. 2 out of 5 total right now, which again, we haven't looked at the other 2. But right now, you've got 2 out of your 3 positions so far that you've looked at. And as far as the future goes, again, this is offensive tackle only. And I will also say I'm going by guys where they're listed, not where they are going to play, because guys can move around all the time, so that doesn't matter to me. But in 2024, you had Fletcher Westphal come in. He was the first blue chip offensive tackle for the Florida Gators, the first blue chip big name offensive tackle commit for the Florida Gators in the 2024 class. And he's your guy. He's the blue chip offensive tackle you have for 2024. But then you look at 2025 and you've got Tavares Dice as well. Which, by the way, this is a position where I think you should have more blue chip players, obviously, like pass catcher, offensive tackle. Every position but quarterback, you should have multiple players as future blue chip players. That's just how it should shake up, because multiple play. Receiver, you've got 6. That's great, because guess what? You're probably going to have 2 to 3 on basically always. Offensive tackle, you've got 2. That's okay, because you're going to have 2, and odds are both of them aren't going to work out. It's just, you guys know how I go. I know you guys always call me pessimistic in the comments for this. I don't think I'm being pessimistic. I think I'm being realistic and trying to say, hey, you need to get more blue chip players here, because it's not realistic to expect everybody to reach your expectations. And I know you're going to call me a nerd for this. I don't care. But by every metric, by every stat, by every number, anything you can look at, history tells you not all players are going to play to their recruiting ranking. It also tells you that some guys are going to outplay their recruiting ranking. But there's way more that aren't going to reach the ceiling than will. And so for me, I'm saying you gotta get more blue chip players at some spots. Offensive tackle being one of them, in my opinion. You've got 2 blue chips. That's great. Sure, right? Walk it off. You're going to have 2 offensive tackles play. Why do you need more? Injuries happen. Guys don't reach expectations. Guys could move inside to guard. Tavares Dice is someone that a lot of people were like, hey, might play guard. Might be a guard long term. If he does that, you've got 1 blue chip offensive tackle. Got to get more blue chip players at premium positions. But for now, you've got guys for the future at all 3 spots we've looked at. I have already told you, you've got guys for the future at all 5 spots we're going to look at. Now it's just about getting a couple more guys here and there sprinkled in. And it's about getting those guys to become the present guys that fit that spot. It's about getting the future to become the present, like you have with quarterback. So you've got to get that addressed as well. We are going to look at the 2 defensive positions when we get back with Locked On Gators. This message is brought to you by Prize Picks, the place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, Prize Picks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's the playoffs or regular season, Prize Picks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying all of the football action. Now, It's playoff time, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks. So here's how it works. You simply pick more or less on at least 2 players, and if your pick hits, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. I did not misspeak. Up to 1,000 times your cash. I told you. On Sunday, I won, right? I had Derrick Henry, less than 103.5 rushing yards, and I had Saquon Barkley more than, I think it was 111.5 rushing yards. And they both cashed. Love it. Ready to run your game this football season? Download the app today and use code Locked On College to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Whether you win or lose, you get $50 just for playing. Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prize Picks. Prize Picks, run your game. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free breakfast in the podcast and on YouTube. To wrap up today's episode of Locked On Gators, we are looking at the defensive side of the football for your building blocks. And again, pass rusher is one that we're looking at. A lot of places will say edge rusher. A lot of people that talk about these things will say edge rusher. That's not the case anymore, at least not for me. I say pass rushers because I'm not going to exclude, a couple years ago, Aaron Donald. I'm not going to exclude Chris Jones. Interior pass rushers. The quickest way from point A to point B is a straight line. You got a D tackle that gets through. There's your guy, right? And this has always been the way that we've approached it. We don't look at just edge. For interior guys, I also don't just look at Cam Jackson, for example. Where it's like, oh, Cam Jackson's a good nose tackle. But is he a good pass rusher? No. So I look at the pass rushing defensive lineman. Okay, so like Dexter Lawrence plays nose tackle for the Giants. In my opinion, best nose tackle on the planet, best interior defensive lineman on the planet. He would count here. Hell of a pass rusher from the nose tackle. But Florida doesn't have that. However, for the present, Florida does have a hell of a pass rusher from the defensive tackle spot in Caleb Banks. So Caleb Banks does give you a present building block. And that is the only one I'm giving you for pass rusher. I know that there will be people who argue to say George Gums, which, yeah. I know there will be people that argue to say Tyreek Sapp. Sure. But I will also say this. Tyreek Sapp is a tremendous defensive lineman, not a great pass rusher. A lot of his pass rush wins are not early. They are done with work and effort and just grinding you down and getting through that way. It is not often that he just straight up sheds a block and destroys an offensive tackle and then gets to a quarterback. He's not like that as far as consistently winning as a pass rusher, right? So I will say that I'm going to exclude, in this case, Tyreek Sapp. As far as George Gums, look, I have not been shy about my take on George Gums. I think he's a great athlete. I think he's very raw as a pass rusher. Got a lot of work to do there. But I also do think that he wins in ways that are sustainable. It's just not winning in ways that are done by being good. It's by pure hustle and intensity. Like Tyreek Sapp and George Gums are not great at destroying blocks as pass rushers. They get their pressures that they need. But as far as just being straight up great pass rushers, I don't think they are. And it's not a knock on them. Again, like I haven't mentioned guys at other spots that I've considered, right? With offensive tackle, I wasn't talking about any other offensive tackle but Austin Barber. With wide receiver, I wasn't talking about any other receiver with Trey Wilson. No one else really came close to a conversation. George Gums, Tyreek Sapp, I took the time to think about it, and I just didn't think that I would say, yeah, they're the good pass rushers that are building blocks. I just didn't think it. But I do think that they've both taken strides. Tyreek Sapp especially has taken tremendous strides. I think he's a fantastic defensive lineman. Again, just not fully there as a pass rusher yet. For the future, you've got L.J. McCray, Jalen Wiggins, and Jaden Woods. So you got one from the 2024 class, two from the 2025 class. You've got guys there. And also, I will say this. I think Florida has done a good job of the 3 stars that they've added on the defensive line. I think they've done a good job of identifying talent that's going to contribute there. Mekhi Boyero is not a pass rusher, but 3-star. Good job with him. I have been saying that I think he's pretty damn good. You look at The 2025 class, Jeremiah McLeod did not finish as a 4-star across the board, or Jeremiah McLeod did not finish with enough 4 stars to really have this conversation. I mean, Joseph Mbachu you can consider, but he's just so raw. We have no idea what he's going to be. Jeremiah McLeod, again, you can consider him as one. He's a pass rushing defensive lineman, 3-star and on 3 and 24/7, 4-star on ESPN and Rivals and the on 3 industry ranking. So you could argue Jeremiah McLeod should be in there, and I'm not going to fight you on it. Again, this isn't me saying that, these guys aren't good. It's just how it's shaken out. But I think Jeremiah McLeod is someone that when he committed, we talked about it, and I was like, look, I think he's really good. Like, I think he's going to be a really good gap shooting defensive lineman. I think he's just going to be a menace, and I love it. He's another one, though, that he wins with a lot of intensity and effort and hustle. But when he gets more refined with his already physical tools in place, he's going to be really freaking good as a defensive lineman that can cause some hell on the interior. Outside corner is the next one. We specify outside corner because if you're an elite slot corner, doesn't exactly make you a premium player, right? You're valuable, but not a premium player. Like, teams don't pay a ton of money for those guys. Outside corner, presently, none. Just can't do it. Just can't say yes. Dijon Johnson put out some really good film for chunks of 2024. But I think he also got beat too often, whether or not he was forced to pay for getting beat. I think he got beat a little too often for my liking. Major ups, major downs, but the tools are there for him to be really good. To be honest with you, I thought he would be better as a safety. He's shown the potential to be a really good cornerback, just straight up. Again, had some really good chunks of 2024, had some pretty bad chunks of 2024. And again, had some plays where he got beat kind of but opposing QBs just didn't see it or didn't make the throw. For the future, you're there. You're good, man. just don't worry about it. You're good with blue chips. You got Jameer Grimsley from the 2024 class, who's technically a transfer portal player. But of course, 2024 was his freshman year. He was at Alabama for like 6 seconds. And then had the portal out when Nick Saban announced his retirement, impromptu, I guess we'll say. So there's that. You got guys like Teddy Foster, who Florida's done a good job of just swinging on ceiling players at corner. And I think Teddy Foster is one of those guys. He's physical at the point of attack, physical in coverage, long, athletic, just has no technique that he needs to really work on there. 2025, you got Ben Hanks Jr., a blue chip across the board. That one was a freaking battle to maintain, and you maintained it. And I think that goes a long way to praise the coaching staff, we'll say. And then in 2026, for the time being at least, you've got Jalen Waters. And I only say for the time being because we know that Miami's pushing hard. We know that he went on a visit to Miami this past weekend. Anything could happen at any point with the Jalen Waters recruitment. We'll see what it is. But as far as the building blocks, Florida, you've got 3 out of 5 present building blocks, which, by the way, to me, 3 out of 5 is what you need, at least. Like 3 out of 5 is where I can look at it and say I'm not mad at it. And so you've got 3 out of 5 there. So I'm not going to be too harsh on you. I'm not going to be too mad at you. There it is. But for the future, you've got all 5 spots with a future building block. That's good roster building. Again, roster really good. Coaches need to step up. Coaching needs to match your talent at this point if you want to hit the ceiling. This is your window. Got to get it done. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free. We're visiting the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow. Talk more Florida Gators football for Locked On Gators. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and I will see you all next time.